Howdy y'all, how's everyone doing today? I'm the cowboy from the cosmos. Welcome back to another Risk video. So, today, I was thinking to myself, okay, so I guess I'll explain the context for what this video is. So, there are quite a lot of, like, quote-unquote guides, on YouTube for Risk, right? It's becoming increasingly popular, thanks to some content creators. And on top of that, no, I'm kidding, I love you, Pete. Pete basically single-handedly has made this game a lot more popular. And with that newfound popularity, obviously, comes a lot of people who want to learn how to play the game. And so, with that, there's a lot of guides coming up. But the problem that I have with a lot of guides is that they all say the same shit. And they're not actually very helpful because they're very, like, basic things, okay? So, like, for example, turn off your camera animations. Oh, that makes you attack a bit quicker. Oh, you always rolled 2 versus 1. You don't attack a 3 versus 2. That kind of thing, right? I was talking to some other people, and they kind of agreed with me on that. So, I was sitting here thinking, well, how do I make more engaging guides that actually teach you to be better at Risk? And the problem that I came up to is that Risk isn't like a cut and dry game. You can't just say do this and win, because it just doesn't work that way. The game's too complex. There's too many things that go on in the match. Like, for example, with chess, right? With chess, since it's a 1 versus 1 sport, you can, like, give strategies that have the highest, like, percentage chance of winning to people, and, you know, like, they can go and use it against less skilled chess people and win consistently, probably, right? But Risk isn't a 1v1 game. Or at least not like the Risk I play, and the Risk that okay. Not the Risk that most people play. 1 second here. But yeah, it's not really like a... Like, it's not a game that is 1 versus 1. So the problem is there's too many moving parts, so I can't say, do these series of moves and you'll win every game. Because in an actual match, there's too many variables that those series of moves, you won't be able to make them. Like, there'll be things in your way, there'll be players in your way, there'll be players who have intentions and things they want out of you, right? There'll be players who get offended because maybe making those moves in one game is not very, like, hurtful, but in another game, you really fuck someone over. So anyway, all that aside, the idea for today's video is I want to take a look at all the different continents on the map of Classic, okay? And we're going to overanalyze the fuck out of this map. Because I really like Classic. I think it's probably my favorite map to play. And I think it's, you know, it's the original Risk map. It's really, really good. And I wanted to make a video on it. And hopefully this will kind of serve as a good guide. Because while I'm not teaching you necessarily what to do in a given game, I'm just going to give you broad ideas of how you should play different positions based on where you are in the game. So we're going to talk about the 5 main continents, because Asia is effectively not a continent for the sake of this video. And we're also going to talk about what you do if you don't have a continent. Although that's not very difficult. That one's a pretty simple position to play if you know what you're doing. So we'll get started here. So we're headed to Asia, right? Or to Europe right now. We're in Asia. But wow. Okay. Sure. Anyway. So we're headed to Europe right now with my 15 stack. So let's take a look at Europe here, okay? And I'm not really focused on this match. I don't really care if I win or not. I'll make friends with people, I guess, quickly, so that maybe I don't get suicided, but otherwise I don't give a shit, realistically. Okay, so Europe, we have the territories of Iceland, Scandinavia, Great Britain, Northern Europe, Ukraine, Southern Europe, and Western Europe. So, the biggest thing about Europe is I actually think it's kind of underrated. I hear a lot of people say it's pretty bad because it's really easy to break and it's kind of hard to defend. But also, in high level play, it turns out to be quite an effective continent because, you don't actually need to defend it. You just threat guard. So I guess before we go any further, some basic terminology. A threat guard. I'll explain what territories are threat guards as we go throughout this. But a threat guard is basically a territory that you can place troops on that covers multiple borders of a continent, but doesn't actually like attack outwards. It's inside the continent. So for Europe, that would be the territories of Scandinavia, Great Britain, and Northern Europe. Those three territories can't attack anywhere that's not in Europe, but they cover multiple parts of Europe from the inside. Right? So, anyway, I think Europe's really good because as a +5, which is a massive troop like income that you gain from it, but also it's pretty easy to guard. You have Iceland and you have Northern Europe. Now, there's a few things you have to keep in mind when you're playing off of Europe, though, and this is kind of what the meat of this video is going to be, is just kind of this. So when you're in Europe, you have two main opponents. You have the North American player, and you have the African player. Now, the African player you want to be best buddies with, because he has multiple borders on you, and you have multiple borders on him. In a civilized game of Risk, where players are not just breaking each other, like, constantly, obsessively, and people are just like, yeah, if you let me hold, I'll let you hold. In those kind of matches, you will almost always be friendly with the or African player, or you at least should try to be, because you both benefit from it, and you both are just as weak to the other as the other is. Like, if you fuck over the African player, he can fuck you over, and vice versa. It's very hard for one of you to break the other without getting broken back. So, with that in mind, you want to make sure that when you have this position, that you are going to be friendly with Africa. Now, North America is the other big opponent you have nearby you. North America is interesting because they're the only continent in the game that can, like, equalize you. Like, they have about the same amount of income, the continent's about as big as each other, all of that stuff. So, for North America, you can be allies with them, and that's probably more helpful than being an enemy of North America. But at the same time, if you have to, like, fight them, don't be afraid to, because you can guard off of Iceland directly, and you can also attack into Greenland and guard off of that. But I guess also North America can also guard off of Iceland coming into you, so there's a bit of a back and forth there where you have to kind of know how to play the situation at hand. But the biggest thing I can give for advice is that if you are fighting a North American player, you want to try and make sure your Ukraine position is pretty good, because they can come through Asia to attack you. But also, if your Ukraine position is strong, you can go through Ukraine, through Ural, Siberia, or Yakutsk, all that, through Kamchatka to come break North America. Like right now, if I wanted to, if I didn't own Mongolia, I could go through Afghan, China, Mongolia, Kamchatka, and break North America, right? So that's kind of the that's two things you need to keep in mind there. The best thing that you can do, usually in most games, is on this position called Northern Europe, you put your whole army there. If you're good friends with both North America and Africa, putting everything on Northern Europe is like the best possible position that you can be on in Classic, period. It's such a good spot, because you get a +5. If anyone breaks you, you can attack them. The only weakness you have is a North American player breaking you, but since you guys are allied, if they do that, then you can now relocate your entire army just one territory over, and now they got a whole army on their doorstep, right? And if they have multiple guards, like, because their borders are not connected the way yours are, they won't be able to pull all their troops. If they have troops in Greenland, Alaska, and Central America, like right now, the 4, the 4, and the 3. Well, if I put my whole army next turn on Great Britain, right, or Iceland even, after getting broken by Yellow, Yellow can either take the Alaska army and fortify them over to defend, or Central America, but he can't do both, meaning that you'll have a bigger army there. So the odds of him wanting to break you are quite low, because he can't collect all his forces in one turn, but you can. On top of that now, one other thing that you should keep in mind about the Europe player is the weird relation you have to the Australian turtle. Now, Australia is a position that I think is just absolutely terrible, but in every game there's someone who has it. Every game, someone takes Australia. I think it's the fucking worst, and when I get to that continent, I'll explain why. But anyway, Australian turtles are kind of in a weird position because they don't have anywhere to expand to. So they really have two people to attack. They can attack you or Africa, because North America outgenerates them by over double and only has one border connecting them. The odds of them being able to break the North American border consistently is really low. So usually the Australian turtle player will get antsy or antsy, whatever, about their position, and they'll try and break people because they don't want to get caught out, they don't want to get outgrown, so they'll start attacking other players to try and equalize themselves. Now, the biggest thing to keep in mind about the Australian turtle players, for the most part, is that if they start breaking you, you might have to just, like, give up Europe. Because if they break you every single turn on your border, it's not really worth fighting them over holding the position. And that's where the Europe strategy kind of comes in. That your threat guard, if they don't care about it and they just break you anyway, not really giving a shit what you do afterwards, then it's almost just better to just sit there and let them break you. Because it's a +5 continent, you don't need it every turn to get its value. You only roughly need it about half as many turns as everyone else to get the same value as other players get, right? Even a third of the turns as everyone else would still give you almost as much generation as South America and Australia. Like, the generation difference between 5 and 2 is really incredible. So I would recommend, like, try to just guard against the Australian player a little bit. Put some smaller armies on Ukraine and Southern Europe, but keep your main army in Northern Europe, and if they keep breaking you, just let them do their thing. Wait it out. And eventually you'll get to play ball. Besides that, though, also, Blue gets a card this turn, but does not trade in, I'm going to have to kill him. Okay. Unfortunate. Anyway. Oh, no, he trades him. So, next up, what we're going to talk about, now that we've kind of discussed relationships between continents, is we're going to talk about North America. Oh, he gets broken. Okay. Now, North America is interesting because North America has what I like to call big brother responsibility of South America, because South America is the only continent in the entire map that does not connect to Asia. Right? All the others do. Europe, Africa, Asia, or Australia, North America. They all connect. And the only one that doesn't is South America. So, in order for the North American player to hold their position, because they have 3 guards that they have to get, right? And realistically, the African player will probably be turtling on North Africa. South America got one way to go if he's not in Asia, and that's through you. So you have the big brother responsibility a lot of the time to make sure he has a position in Asia and to enable him to play off of it. And there may be times where you have to let him roam through your continent to go back to Asia, because you don't realistically have another choice. You either get stuck in a war with him, or you just take the punch in the nose for 3 to 4 turns and you just let him do his thing. If he's like a high level player, it might only take 1 turn of you losing your continent and then he's gone. So that's something to keep in mind very much with this South America player. But also, because they don't have anywhere else in Asia, if you have significantly more troops than them, you can card lock them and you can knock them out of Asia, especially, and try to get them to hit the African player because you have them troop value, like the amount of troops, that if you're already in the lead, you can easily brawl it out with South America. And you can, like, go to that war of attrition with them, and they know that. So they'll go to Africa instead, because Africa only gets +3, it's one more troop. The odds are that they can probably convince Africa to let them through, right? I say convince, but I mean I'll smash your stack if you don't move. Kind of convincing. But anyway. So the South American and North American continents are like tied together, like soulbound, and you need to keep that very much in mind. Whenever you're in North America, the first thing I always do is, what am I doing with South America? Am I taking it? Am I allowing someone to take it? Am I stopping people from taking it? Am I card blocking it, etc., etc.? Next thing, as we discussed before, is with Europe. So, your Europe position, you can be friends of Europe, and preferably you should be. But just like with the Europe position, you don't have to be. You can definitely not be friends of Europe the same way Europe can not be friends with you. Really, if it comes down to each player is not friendly, it's whichever one takes the initiative first that will win that fight. Because even just 1 or 2 turns where you get a bonus and the other player doesn't, you're probably going to win. And you'll force them off of their continent. So, because of this, Greenland's a fantastic territory to hold. And you can actually, so the Iceland territory of Europe here, right? This territory cannot be hit by Northern Europe. It's the only territory that Northern Europe can't hit. And that's where all their bulk of forces are going to be. So if you put a big army in Iceland, not only do you deny them their continent, but you also make them have to fortify off of Northern Europe just to contest it, which is a really, really good position to be in. Because then that means their entire other side's exposed, and another player can stick a stack on, like, Southern Europe, for example, and there's nothing they can do about it. So it's a good position to be in for sure. I feel like North America probably has the favor between Europe and North America in that very specific engagement. Because while, yeah, they can sit in Greenland, you probably already would have a threat guard in Northwest Territory. And your threat guard can actually reach Greenland, unlike the Northern Europe threat guard can reach Iceland. So that's just something to keep in mind there. Where am I getting a card? Over here, okay. But yeah. So there's little things to keep in mind like that. The next thing is, so with Australia. So while Europe actually has an interesting interaction with Australia, you kind of don't. And you want to take advantage of that. Usually, when it comes to North America, I feel like it's their responsibility, if the game goes on long enough, to deal with the Australian player. And the reason's simple. Because if you put even 3 troops a turn on a stack in Kamchatka, or even 2 troops just to equalize, Australia cannot surpass that army. They don't generate enough. So, with that being said, even just a few turns of you putting 5s there is way more than they can handle. Meaning you can attack Australia with that army, fortify back to Kamchatka, and they cannot punish it. They have no way of doing it. They have to go through Europe, or they have to go through Africa, South America. And both ways are not an ideal way for them to go. So usually, if the game goes on long enough, for the sake of board politics, you should be trying to be the initiator against, wow, this player's real fucking dumb, huh? Anyway, you should try to be the initiator against, Australia, purely because you actually have the resources to do it. But yeah, there's no card benefit to doing that. This red player made a mistake there. So yeah, while Europe is a lot more defensive when it comes to Australia, North America's a lot more aggressive. You should be setting the pace, setting the tone. You should be the one that's like, hey, you know, I'm not letting you get this. And yeah. So next up, we're going to talk about South America here. Now, South America is interesting for a few reasons. Because again, it's the only one that doesn't connect to Asia. So when you're playing South America, you should always consider that you have one extra stack. You have your guard stacks, whether that's one stack on Peru, one stack on Brazil, one stack on Venezuela, or it's a stack on Venezuela and Brazil. Whether you have two stacks in there or one stack on any of those three, it doesn't actually matter. But what does matter is that you always have an Asian stack. So here's the thing. Because you are very easily card locked in South America. And there's a lot of games I play where I allow myself to be card locked. Where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to hit you for cards. And that's just because you have to do the math. In fixed, a card is worth roughly like 3.5 troops. Or like 2.5 troops. It depends on what luck you get for your cards. But like 2.5 troops is around the average you're going to get. And that's just not worth attacking like a 10 stack for, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not worth it. Realistically, 2.5 troops is only a little more than what you get per turn anyway. So you go from having 4.5 per turn to like 2 per turn if you just get 0 cards. Which is something to consider. But anyway, you always want a position in Asia. Now, what's interesting is that you are the only continent, really, that wants to be friends with Australia. Because while Australia is never going to hold Asia, at least in the normal risk game, they are the ones who kind of set the tone for how Asia's played. Because if they go ahead and put all their troops on Siam, then that means that China and India, you kind of have to give them for free, because you don't want to open that one stack. If they're in Indonesia, then they're just being stupid and bad, like this green player is, where they're like not able to do anything really because of their choices, but that's fine. As well is that you want to be, if they put stacks, if they split their forces between China and India, then there's already very little room. There's a single territory line of the Middle East, Afghan, and Ural, and in this little pocket up here. And so that's where the situation is like, okay, you want to make good friends with them so that you can keep trading. Because if you and Australia can keep trading, little guys have each other's backs, you know? You're both a small generation. You both look out for each other. It'll benefit you significantly in the long run. As well as you probably want to be good friends with the African player. So Africa is kind of like your guardian in some way, because your stack in Asia, the quickest line from your stack in Asia to you is through Africa. Now, if a player wants you to die, he'll move his stack away from you. But if he's friendly with you, right? Now in Africa, your guys are good buddies. You don't even have to put armies there. You can put everything on Venezuela to protect yourself against a +5. And you can just chill with the African player guarding your other side. So keep that in mind, is very important, because the African player is usually your best friend in this situation. And as I described before, you preferably want to be good buddies with North America. You really should try to get it. It's not 100% necessary, but it's pretty important, because as I said before, if North America has a big advantage, they can bully you into fighting Africa or just sitting in the corner for the rest of the game. And on top of that is that North America is kind of your big brother. If you can get him to help you out and he can enable you in Asia, like let's say for example he weakens the Australia player so you can capture Australia to get a +4, that's pretty important. So keeping in mind that he's going to be your enabler and he's going to be the guy who helps you out will really help you improve a lot of your game. I guess I'll use that. I don't really care. So trying to be good friends with the North American player should come pretty important. I always play with alliances on, and I guess I'll give you the recommendation. You should always play with alliances on. Because if, for example, Blue right now was to take North America, well, me and him are allied. I can ask him to help me with things. I can show him what I mean, intend, and what I would like to have happen. You know? So, it's just important to keep in mind. It's definitely very helpful to have a friendship there. Also, as a South American player, you are interesting because you have no relationship with Europe. But that's kind of a spooky thing. So I can give you the tip now. If you were the South American player, the last player you should attack or mess with is Europe. Because here's the thing. Australia, it costs them a lot of troops to hit your stack in Asia. It makes it difficult for them. But you want to be friends, but at the same time, it's already difficult to do it anyway. Because they don't get any more troops than you do. Europe doesn't have that problem. But Europe still doesn't actually have any line to you, just like Australia. Which means, if you break the Europe player and they get upset at you, they can knock you completely out of Asia, and you cannot retaliate. You can't punish them, you can't do anything about it. You just have to accept it. So, I would highly recommend, for the sake of a player in like a continental game like this one, very much do not piss off the Europe player as the South American player. It will only be a bad thing. Besides that, though, that's South America is a very passive continent. I think it's honestly way better than Australia. It's better of the plus twos, especially because it relies on people like working with you. It means that in more games than not, if you play with alliances on, players will feel less threatened by you because your existence like needs them to help, needs them to kind of help you in some way. Unless just you're a self-sufficient Asia stack, no one ever touches you kind of player. Most of the time you'll need their help, which means they'll want to be your ally because they know you need their help, right? So you're not going to fuck them over because it would be in your disinterest to do that. So, next thing, quickly I wanted to go back to North America because I remember this partway through talking about this. See, this is why we write scripts, kids. So, for North America, when you are playing in Asia off of Kamchatka, another thing you can do, I call this the Pete hold, okay? Now, what the Pete hold is, basically, is the Pete hold is this territory Mongolia and territory Siberia. So you take Yakuts, Irkuts, Kamchatka, and Japan. And sorry if I pronounced any of those wrong, my throat is really dry right now, so I'm having a real rough time here. That's why I'm clearing my throat every now and then. But so, you want to hold on Siberia and Mongolia. It increases your amount of borders by 1, so you go from 3 borders to 4 on North America. But if you do the math, it gives you 15 territories if you hold this pocket and all of North America. Which, 15 territories is a fucking steal. That is such a powerful tool. It basically makes it so that you get from going from a +5 to a +7 every turn. And that is usually the way that the North American player will pull ahead of the Europe player. Because Europe really is no, like, good way of getting to 15 or even 12 territories. But North America, it is a very good way, and it's the Pete hold. So, if you ever are in a game that's stalemating and taking a really long time, I would always recommend going for the Pete hold, because it A, gives you priority of Asia. It actually is the only way that an Australian player does not have Asian priority, is by you doing it, because you own most of Asia then, right? You own literally everything from Siberia, Mongolia upwards. You own the entire top corner. So it's pretty powerful, and I would recommend, trying it out. Anyway, so next content we're going to talk about is the infamous Australia. Now, Australia, I'm going to give you a hot take here. I think is really fucking bad. I think Australia is quite possibly one of the worst continents out of any risk map ever. Just straight up. It is terrible and awful in a lot of ways. But in the way that's important for this video, what we're going to talk about is why is Australia so bad in relations to other people and in relations to Asia itself. So, as you can see, Mr. Green here, I had to open up his stack just now. Now, even if his continent or his stuff was put on Siam, the standard Australian hold. Wait, what? I was trying to be friend. What the fuck? I was trying to help you, bro. Okay, anyway. Even if... I might get suicide this turn, by the way, guys. But anyway, even if you put on Siam, it's very easy to get, like, your stack locked. And the problem with the Australian position is it's a eggs in one basket type position. You go all in on having this one stack that's really, really strong. So if that stack can't get out of Australia without needing to fortify, it leaves you kind of useless. You can't really do anything. You can't make any plays. You can't initiate anything. And the second you want to, by fortifying, you're signaling to every player on the board, you want to make plays, be prepared for a play to happen. And you give them a full turn's advance to know that something's going to happen. So it's kind of worrisome. It's kind of questionable. Oh, wait, was he upset because I knocked out a bunch of his territories and he wanted the plus 12 or something? That might be it. Anyway. Please don't suicide me. Even if he does, I'm going to keep going. Australia is interesting because here's why I think it's also the worst. Besides having the ability to be locked really fucking easily, it also, on top of that, has basically no expansion points. So if you look at the rest of the map, right? Let's take Europe. If you in Europe happen to win a battle between you and the African player, you can go to Africa. If you win the battle against North America, you can go to North America. If, you know, you're South America and you win somehow against North America, maybe with the help of, like, the Europe player, you can go to North America, right? And so forth. Australia doesn't have that. Australia has literally nowhere it can naturally expand to. And both of its closest neighbors, Europe and Africa, if it takes one of those, it's just giving itself more neighbors. And the whole advantage of Australia is that you have a single position. But the second you stop having a single position, it becomes complete and utter dog shit and is just useless. So expanding to anywhere would be incorrect, because then you give up the one good thing you have going for you, which is that you have one really big army, right? So, keeping that in mind, Australia also, on top of that, really struggles, because not only can you not go anywhere, but you can't do a whole lot of anything. Like, the worst you can do is just piss off the Europe player, or piss off the African player. That's basically it. You can try and fight the North American player, but they'll probably win. You can't fight the South American player, and you don't generate enough troops that realistically you can afford to just sit there and overwhelm everyone eventually. Because you'll never overwhelm anyone. You just have one army. Unless they all start fighting each other, you will never pull ahead. Ever in Australia. Because you only have a +2. So, what should you do if you get Australia? Right? So here's what we're going to talk about. Okay. Well, what is the Australian strategy? Because just sitting there and taking a card every turn until people beat each other up and you win is really fucking dumb. So Australia, because it only has one stack, meaning that you can afford to use some of that stack, as long as you still have a good position remaining, it's unlikely people will hit you when you're later in the game and have like 60s, like 70 stacks. over a +2. There's just, unless you're playing with like complete bronze like novice kids, they won't do it. Unless I guess they're suiciding you. So, you should be using your position to be friends with either South America or North America. Because South America also can't really fight anything on its own. But with our powers combined, we can maybe beat up the African player. Or maybe we can beat up the North American player, right? So, Australia's one of those weird things where you're kind of useless on your own, and your existence pisses every other player on the board off, but somehow if you convince someone that you can be useful to them, you maybe can get some value out of Australia, being like this powerhouse that can, you can break a continent first, like let's say Africa. Let's say they had equal guards on North Africa, Egypt, and East Africa, and someone owns Europe, okay? Well, if you come in from Australia and break, like, East Africa, okay? They'll have to move their army off of the North African border, or at least some of it, and then South America can punch them from the other side, and you guys can kind of just, like, gang up on the African player and just kind of punch him in the back and the front all at once. And that's really the correct way, I think, to look at it, is that you can kind of just beat up the poor guy. You can also do this with North America, and I mean, you can kind of do it with, like, Europe, because you can make it where it's really hard for Europe to justify knocking South America out, because then they'll be so weak that North America and you can kind of beat up on a Europe player really easily. So there's a lot of, like, mind games there. A lot of Australia's gameplay loop, I guess, and it feels wrong calling it that, because it's really fucking not, but a lot of the gameplay loop of Australia is trying to use your one big stack to be a pain in people's ass, so that other people can help you actually achieve anything meaningful. Because usually the Australian player won't, like, take a fight and win it solo, but with the help of someone, you kind of annoy the shit out of them, and then the other person does all the actual, like, real work to get something done. But on top of that, I would say the biggest oh, am I dead here? No. Okay. The biggest finite reason why Australia is bad, and to keep this in mind, is that... Ah, shit, what was I gonna say? It's that Australia... Oh, yeah. Everyone wants Australia. So here's where we're gonna talk about what the novice mindset is real quick, okay? When it comes to novice players who are bad at the game, they really want Australia. Now, why do they really want Australia, Cowboy? Well, because they see a continent that has one guard and gives them free troops, basically. They don't consider any other part of Australia's existence, any other part at all, other than it's a +2 that has one guard. It's a free continent, essentially. That's the only thing they see, and it's the only thing they consider. So, based off of that fact, and that they only consider that, they may very well early game suicide into you for it. That's why you'll see a lot of players who will have, like, a very good Africa take, start balling their troops up, and then they'll move into Asia for no reason, just because they want it. Because Africa takes skill to play. Africa, you actually have to do something. And you don't have to do that with Australia. You can just sit there and do absolutely nothing all game, and you'll at least get top, like, 3. Like, minimum top 3, right? If not, top 2. If not, you just clean up the mess everyone else makes. So, if we're looking at it from that perspective, and that, you can kind of do jack shit in Australia, a lot of players will want it. So, more times than not, rather than actually playing Australia, the infinitely better idea is to play no continent at all. And that is my segue into the no continent section. So, you're playing Classic. What the hell do you do if you have no continent? And yes, we're going to get to Africa, don't worry, I did not forget about it. Well, right now, I have been showing you gameplay of having no continent. What is no continent strategy? Basically, you're like the Australian player. Equally as useless. But, the biggest difference between you and the Australian player is you don't have to worry about someone suiciding you. Unless you provoke someone and attack them in a way that upsets them, why would they ever hit you? You don't even have a bonus that they could possibly want. You have literally nothing. They don't want you in any way, shape, or form. You are useless to them. So, the no continent player is usually you want to be around where the action is. Let's say Europe and North America are wailing on each other. You want to be chilling, like, right around that area. So whichever one of them loses their continent, you can go and scoop it up. Now, I'm someone who's I play a very hardcore no continent game. I will take no continent all the way to the 1v1. The end game 1v1. I will take no continent all game. I won't use it at all. I don't need it. But I wouldn't recommend it for most people because it's not something I could really explain in like a single video. I would need to make like multiple videos of me just playing no continent matches and explaining everything I'm doing for it to give a proper understanding on how to play it, because every match is different and what worked in one match won't work in another, so I have to change up my ideas and my strategies, right? So for some simple surface level things is that you want to try and scoop up continents that other people give you access to, but also you want to scoop up kills. Cards are your friend. If you're not going to have a continent, you must get cards. Cards are your priority. Play this almost like a progressive game. If someone has cards and you can kill them, and it's like reasonably worth it to kill them, like they have 5 cards but 40 troops, you might lose a little bit in the overall, but you'll benefit out of the fact that you have, for 2 turns in a row, big sets to return that, meaning that you can use those offensively if you need that little extra push to break something. If you need that little extra, oomph for whatever. You can play off of your card matches. On top of that, it means that you have a higher chance of getting better sets, because if you have 5 cards and you're already holding some cards, the odds that you have to trade in an infantry set are much lower. Like right fucking now. If I had like 8 cards, I almost definitely would have had enough horses or enough cannons to, give me a better set. So you can also use them in that way so that you're not trading in bad sets and wasting your cards, because your cards are precious, right? So keep that in mind. Oh, what the hell? My friend. That's an aggressive play. I hope you don't hit me. I think that would be considerably silly. Wait, is he going to kill him for 2 cards? No way, right? What am I witnessing? Huh. Okay. So green wins then. GG. Good game, everyone. Cause yeah, red just gave up. All right, man. So anyway, yeah, hunting cards very important. Besides that, it's pretty simple. I'm not going to sit here and explain how to play no continent for 10 minutes. There's just no reason. So we're finally going to talk about Africa. Africa, I think, personally, alright, in my very biased opinion, is the best continent in all of the game. Why? Well, my friend, because you have a few things going for you. First off, you're not a +5, which means people won't lose their minds whenever they see you. However, while you're not a +5, you're a +3, which is still better than a +2. And that does add up. That means in 2 turns, you get 6 troops, while it takes other players to get 6 troops. What are they called? If other players want that, it takes them 3 turns on a +2. So you get troops a little bit quicker, right? And that does add up. It does matter later on. It will factor in. On top of that, you also have a really, really good position because you are both able to be friends and work with as a South American player, but you also can be friends with and work with the Europe player. And having a +5 buddy while you are not just a weak little +2 is really nice. Because you actually have a bit more punching power than South America does, and you have none of the risk of being card locked that South America does. So you have the same positives, but just none of the negatives. On top of that, you also can work with the Australian player to tag team things and be effective that way as well. So you really can work with absolutely everyone. You can even work with North America to beat up South America if you both want a really cheap take. A lot of Turk games, what I see, is a North American player will give the African player South America so that the African player gets effectively a +5 like Red has here, and they just chill, right? So that kind of stuff is really useful, and that kind of stuff's really good. Africa on top of that also, not only oh shit, I don't have an attack. Whoops. Anyway, so on top of that, Africa also has the benefits that you can hold everything on one guard. So South America, Asia, Europe mostly all have that benefit, right? But Africa has not only 3 territories where it can do it on, so you can really, shimmy around, but also, on top of that, Africa's main territory that you do it on, North Africa, has just great connections. You can connect into South America from it, and you can connect into, what's it called? You can connect into South America and into Europe, and it's still a guard for all 3 of your borders. There's no other position on the map that does that. Like, the Europe position guards 3 borders as well, but it can't connect to anything. The South American one can guard both of its borders from either side, but it only connects one way. So you really have the absolute best position, because you can connect to the most things. You have, like, all of the advantages of a smaller continent. It's just such a good position. I would highly recommend, if you don't know where to go and you have a reasonably decent position on Africa, go for Africa, dudes. It's just great. Africa's awesome. It always works out. Also, this red player, I really don't fucking like his playstyle, because he's gonna hunt me for cards, right? But I don't know how beneficial all of this is. Because he's gonna hunt me for cards, he's gonna kill me eventually, and then he just loses the green player immediately. Immediately he'll lose the green player. So it's like, why the fuck is he hunting people for cards? Like, he hunted blue for like 2 cards. And he killed all of his troops doing it. But I mean, I'm not going to initiate on him. Like, I don't really care if I win. Otherwise, I probably would have, like, tried to kill red. And then tried to 1v1 the Australian player. But, oh well. Oh well. I don't really care if I win. It's just preferable that I do. So, what we're going to do now is, what should you try and do in Africa? So, let's say you're in Africa here. What should your main goals be? Because you got the best fucking continent in the game, realistically. I would say your goals should be to try and make an alliance with either one or both of the +5 players and try and get the South American position or the Australian position. It's a bit harder to get the Australian one, but it can be done. I've seen it done before. It's definitely not out of the question. So, your goal should be to try and ally up, and like, for example, if you're allied with Europe, he can knock out South America's exterior. If you're allied up with North America, he can help you just straight up take the continent. And your goals should be to try and become a +5 mid to late game of a match. Because if you can do that, you have the same generation as the rest of them, but you also, on top of that, didn't have to struggle through the early game to maintain that position the way they did, right? And on top of that, they still will have a bit more overall troops than you, usually. Which means other players will be more geared to fighting them over you. Sorry I'm offline, our alliance is over. Oh, fucking damn it. Okay, well, how do I win this game? Are you actually offline? I mean, it appears you came back. I don't know if you came back yet. Well, you either came back or you didn't. Because I know it does show them attacking as if they're a person now. But, if he's back, then he's back. If not, Red will hit me this turn. But, like, it doesn't say, sorry, I'm offline. Like, usually it says that. Or, like, it'll say MIA, like the yellow player. But it doesn't say that. Well, I guess time to find out. Anyway. So, yeah. Mid to late game, try and expand. Early game, you should chill. You kind of are like... Because you're not a big content, so you can't play it like a big content, swinging your dick around, setting the pace. You kind of follow the tempo. If people are ganging up on someone, you're going to join in. If, you know, there's contents available, you can start fighting over it with other people. You really want to be kind of the guy who is like... You're there following the vibes that everyone else is setting, but you're not setting the vibes yourself. You know what I mean? You're along for the ride, kind of thing. And in late games where you can start asserting dominance and start actually playing more interestingly. So yeah, that's kind of my idea, my guide. It's like 2:30 a.m. I don't know how helpful this will be to people. Maybe this will be a really fucking unhelpful video. Like maybe literally there's nothing to gain out of this. But I don't know. Maybe you guys find some usefulness. If you did, you know, feel free to leave a like or some, you know, that'd be cool, I guess. But besides that, man, I don't know. I'm not here to harsh your vibes, to hold you here any longer. I'm just chilling. I'm gonna play this game out. You guys can watch. You guys can cheer me on. Cowboy, 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 you know? And we'll see what happens. Hey! You love to see it. He's gonna kill the bot, right? And it's gonna be a terrible fucking move. But he's gonna kill the bot. And then I'm gonna kill him. Especially because he trapped his army, okay? That's the biggest crime. But, I mean, it's a terrible move, because now what? You trapped your army, idiot, and now I just kill you. And then it's just me versus green, but green's not fucking here. So it's like, it's just me versus me. And even if green comes back, I'll own the whole board. I'm not gonna trap myself. I'm not doing dumb shit. So, red loses now. And then green loses, eventually. But I do have to build up to kill green. Oh, green's back. Green's back. Well, looks like we are going to tag team poor little red. Little Red Riding Hood's about to get beat the fuck up. So, I'm going to let them fight, because red seems like he's kind of stupid. And something tells me he's going to get upset. And him getting upset means that I can kind of just wall up him and the green player later on. But this is where we're going to show some penultimate, no continents gameplay, baby. We gave up our Europe as soon as we thought we should, and then now we're just going to prey on the fact that these guys are pretty weak. That was a mistake. Okay, well, GG. Green can't leave now, so he's stuck. So now I just kill red, and then I just win the game. Because what the fuck else did they do, huh? Especially because there's 90-second turns. I only turned those on to attract, like, more noobs. And I found some. So I don't even have to worry, like, I don't have to try to take the board quickly. Because it'll just kind of happen that I take the whole board. And then I just win. because nobody can stop me. So we'll throw up like a 20 here. Knock this position out. Then we'll just all plant our army right over here. And there's realistically not a whole lot that the green player can do. Because we just simply own more of the board than he does. Actually, I don't care too much if he breaks down there. I'd rather he like goes through there. But I'd like to have one strong army. There we go. Good luck, green. He'll probably trade in this turn. He's probably trying to figure out where he hits. He's going to probably go... I would go through North America, break Europe, try to make Africa, South America. But also, who knows? His connection has not been the greatest. He may be intentionally botting out, or he might accidentally just keep disconnecting. And if he's accidentally disconnecting, the game's just over. Like, there's just nothing he can do. And what's great is I can even get cards for 2 more turns without needing to open him up through Japan and Mongolia. But yeah, so, you know, thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry I don't upload very much. You know, usually I say at the start of videos, but I've decided I'm not going to do that. Because, you know, I say I want to upload more and then I just don't. Oh, the AI's just not playing. Cool. And I'm getting a computer, though. I'm saving up money for it. And when I get a PC, that's when I'll start, like, you know, actually uploading more. Because I can record on a PC. I know. Phenomenal. And that'll be pretty important. I really, really, really want to get a computer. Recording on mobile sucks. It's honestly kind of miserable. Streaming on mobile is even fucking worse. I hate streaming on mobile, straight up. It's terrible. So, you know, not having to worry about that and getting an actual computer will be great. It'll be such a lifesaver. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot else to say here. Thank you guys for some people check out my content like sub, even though I haven't uploaded in like a month. If the people who do that are watching right now, thank you. I appreciate it. We got to 400 subscribers, which is actually like really fucking impressive when I haven't uploaded in a month, and I was at like 360 last time I uploaded. So we gained like a good like eighth of my subs just not uploading. We'll call that the Pete has made or risk a popular search item effect. But yeah, I'm planning to make more videos at some point that are educational, because I would like to fill the niche of making like guides for highly specific things. So like for this, it's a fixed classic overanalysis of the map. Those guys were for novices. Yeah, that's understandable. Those guys were pretty bad. But yeah, if you guys want more videos like this, let me know, I guess. If you have maps you want to see, you can let me know. I can talk about maps. Classic is definitely the most, like, in-depth one, I think, because everyone knows it. And there's a lot of strategy in Classic. But, like, I can talk about other ones. And there's other maps out there that I'm sure would be really good for discussing for an in-depth thought process. Maybe I'll do one on, like, Conway Castle or something. Because, like, that map, I played my World Finals in, the first ever one I played. And that one, I think, had a lot of interesting social dynamics. But yeah, that's going to be all for me today. Thank you guys very much for hanging out. Sorry for this long-winded outro. I didn't know what to put here, so it's like 3 a.m. or something. I'm tired. Alright, y'all. Peace out, and I'll see you in the next one.